Dear viewers, this is a new episode, a new version, Echo Evans from Sudanese Echo Platform. We have accustomed to go over many topics in Sudan, the most important. And I think this week is very rich with many military and civil and political issues. But we are going to tackle some of them in this episode. The first one is that meeting with the committee of evacuating the capital, Khartoum, from the fighters and combatants. This committee is headed by the Deputy Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces, Khairallah Abdullah, General Khairallah Abdullah, and with many responsible in the Khartoum state. The responsible of the police and also the security committee in the capital and many of the responsible in the intelligence bodies in Sudan. The committee is concerned mainly by system policy to evacuate all the fighters who are committed to the Joint Armed Committee from Khartoum. It is obvious to say that the fighters is not responsible of the interior security of the capital, but they are mainly for defending the country from any fighters from outside and even now the rebellion of the RSF. The presence of those who come after the coming of many of the joint forces to the capital must be temporary. They must prepare themselves outside the capital, in many camps outside, and then they have to prepare themselves for the battle, the real battle in the west of Sudan, as far as they are come to join the armed forces for this battle. The committee have tackled many things. The security breaches and lapses which dominated the Khartoum capital have one of these reasons, and also the questions of smuggling and the problem and other crimes. This leads this committee to take a decision that all fighters must be outside and the capital must be evacuated from the capital. The responsible of the interior security, as we know, it is a question to the police, the Ministry of Interior. But I think there is many difficulties to do its job properly because there is many problems, and the rebel, when they come to Khartoum and invaded Khartoum, they demolished many police centers. This police, the Ministry of Interior, is in need of logistic, materials, training of staff in order to do the job. Then we can say if this committee have something to do properly is to go further in preparing and assuring all the logistic of the police in order to take over the security in the capital and the evacuation of the fighters who are belonging to the joint force will be possible and will be fruitful. The second topic is the victory of the armed forces and all the combatants and those who are joining now the armed forces in the West Darfur. This concern for the armed forces is a real point to go further. All of them and the armed forces, they are speaking about Al Ubaid as a capital of North Kordofan, and they are speaking about many battles in other parts of Darfur and in North and South Kordofan. But the question of liberating Al Geneina, the capital, and also the West Darfur from this rebel, this concerned a real victory during this period. This have been preceded by a declaration of the Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces, the General Yasser Al-Ata, who have addressed the military in Khartoum and outside, and decided that the second part of this battle will be inside Darfur region and also the Blue Nile region. There is many victories in this week in the Blue Nile region, although there is a drones and there is combatants who come from Ethiopia, from that camp in Beni Shangol, and enter the region of the Blue Nile. But the Fourth Arm have achieved many good progress in this area, in the region of the Blue Nile in part, and in the West Darfur in the second part. So we have to arrange ourselves for this battle, because the joint force who are distributed now and also dispersed in the North Sudan must be combined and go towards the region of Darfur and the region of North Kordofan and also South Kordofan, in order to stop this military aggression and military rebellion who comes from Chad, from Central Africa, and from other parts. Unfortunately, the support which comes from outside is still going on. Lately, they are declared that there is a caravan of battles and also logistic who come from Chad, and the second who come from Libya, and this need really the general observation and control of our frontiers of Sudan in these areas. It also needs to control the access of Adri, which have been always formed now in order to pass over it the humanitarian aids. This needs many efforts from the armed forces, from the joint forces, to stop this aggression. The third topic, which will be mainly concerning the battle and concerning the humanitarians and the attack of the rebel in Sudan, is the visit of the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, His Excellency the Ambassador, who is now in Geneva, is practicing a good work. The Minister of Foreign Affairs have a very good meeting with the Council of Human Rights in Geneva, and also another meeting with the humanitarian organization in Geneva, and met also many of the ambassadors which have been accredited in the Geneva, in the United Nations organization. The meeting have passed over the attacks and have passed over the aggression of all these rebels and the weak and the lack of the international organization support in the humanitarians in track. So they are in need to support this area by this organization. And one of the stories which have been raised during these days is the presence of the United Nations humanitarian organizations in the area of the rebel in the West Darfur. This gives a very negative mark and remarks for this organization, not to support the rebel, but to support the citizens who have been displaced, who have been outside of their areas, who have been now in campuses, and they are in need of a real support. We hope that the minister of the visit of this Minister of Foreign Affairs in Geneva and his meetings, all these responsibles will be in favor of the citizens who have been now in the campuses of refugees and displaced. Dear viewers, this is the end of our episode for this week from even the ECHO, from Sudanese ECHO platform, and we have a promise to meet each other in the coming week. Thank you and goodbye.